button right in the nick of time. Yeah, and I know that he was just speaking about, oh, not wanting to be a Debbie Downer and being self critical. But I think with these players, they have high expectations for themselves as well as the audience out there. And
Yeah.
you can still see they are those same players. And we just watch them really handedly take these wins, but they're always going to continue to push the envelope in that way. So excited to see how they do going on into Proving Grounds.
All so exciting. But let's go ahead and dive into our next series of the night. It is TSM Academy taking on Team Liquid Academy. Team Liquid coming off some domineering performances coming into the end of the split itself. But the first conversation, the first topic of discussion is this TSM Academy squad. Yes, they are at the bottom of the standings, but I feel like they've had a real resurgence in this last week. The Super
Yeah, I think
Week
it's
playing
funnily
well for
enough
them.
similar to the matchup we just watched a little bit, where there's a clear favorite when it was Team Liquid and Cloud9, and an underdog in FlyQuest and TSM. But the underdog is actually the one who got the 2-0 yesterday, and TSM is looking a lot better. I think Kaido had looked pretty good on his Corki and was able to take over a lot of those games. And I think he's someone that a lot of people are looking for, not just to be a carry for the academy team, but someone who was obviously invested in, brought over, and you want to see have good games at this level of play before wondering if he can step back up into the LCS and if he's going back to the main roster, or if, the TSM Academy team just lost takeover for Proving Grounds. We don't actually know exactly where this is all going.
It has been fun watching their development, because going into it, you think, okay, how are the existing members of TSM that were on this team last year going to perform? And it felt like, oh, you're seeing some opportunities that your son is creating, but how can TSM bring those advantages into game victories? And it feels like we're seeing that synergy between, the support and the jungle position in Yerson and Hyper really form and be a PowerPoint, so that then you can look to the solo laners to pop off and do what they need to do.
Yeah, and it's been interesting to see them interchanging the support role as well and seeing how that all works out. But Team Liquid Academy on the other side, they're not switching out nothing. They are looking dominant in the second half of the round robin. They are looking dominant here in the Super Week. And this team, hey, there's a reason why we've lauded them so much for past experiences, past splits, and here in the end of the 2022 spring split. Spawn's
I
got to
think
be
so.
pretty proud as a head coach.
He's always someone who loves gassing up his players. I'm sure he's going to be gassing these guys up. A lot of them have played before in scouting ground, or excuse me, proving grounds, or even in higher stakes masters for Armeo and Ayla and stuff like that. So I think this is a team that you should keep your eye on heading into proving grounds. And I think they're also doing that kind of thing they were talking about with the Cloud9, where they're taking a lot of standard comps because they're expecting a lot of stuff thrown their way over the course of Proving Ground. So it feels like they've pulled back their drafting a little bit to be a little bit more standard and try and really hammer out those kinds of comps, knowing that it's going to be something you're going to need to use a lot in Proving Grounds.
I mean, he's gassing them up for good reason, right? A lot of prowess with things. And when you're looking at some of the difficulties they had earlier on in the split, you just have to imagine when they're shifting rosters, when they're making all these changes that they have to in the background, it's going to affect the way they play. And ever since Ayla came back to this roster in full force, they've been looking good.
Yep. Yeah, they really have. And I want to harken back to the Team Liquid Academy of old, just last year. Their Proving Ground run, I believe we have some clips to run of them, because this team, obviously, I was kind of foreshadowing to it, but this team has shown that when it comes down to best ofs, when it comes down to macro decisions, when it comes down to dominating the scene in NA development,
Yeah.
they can do
They've
something.
had a wild ride, though, when it comes to Proving Grounds.
They did,
because,
exactly.
Ever since Spawn came onto this team, and you think, wow, Team Liquid Academy looking really good. They pulled up earlier last spring when it came to Academy standings to just being so dominant. And then in spring, Proving Grounds had such an unfortunate turn. They ended up getting knocked out in the very first round, 0-2'd by Barrage, then 0-2'd by Golden Guardians, which just weren't their personal standards, and then came back with a vengeance afterwards, right? Really trying to come through strong in the Proving Grounds of summer, where, yeah, they make it all the way to the distance. They don't quite get that victory, but it was a very fun series against 100 Thieves Academy, and I know that they definitely want to prove that they deserve to get that overall dub that they've been working towards.
It was gosh, that best of 100 Thieves Academy versus TLA, like God, it is
So
literally
good.
legendary. Like the fact that we got to see so many of those iterations, and maybe we get even more of that this year. But speaking of TSM Academy a little bit more, there's been one player that we definitely want to highlight. One player that we feel like we were a bit undeservedly put in the shadow a little bit throughout the season. It is Viper, because Viper himself, legendary top lane, one of the start of the legendary legacy family members that he has, and he has been popping on the top lane even with the stacked
Definitely feels
competition he's
like
been going
the
against.
focus was put on the rest of the team for a little while because he was the veteran. You're trying to talk about these other newer players that people might be less familiar with, and you're like, wait a minute, this guy's still pretty good. And there were definitely some moments where Viper was struggling throughout the year, but he's really stepped it up in these last couple of weeks. Him and Hyper have been comboing together much better to actually snowball him when he's put in these kind of carry champions. And it's definitely a hard role to play if you're not getting played around correctly. If you are expecting to become this monstrous split pusher, you need good vision control, you need good communication. That was something that TSM Academy was struggling with a lot at the start of the split that they've gotten better at.
Working his way from his time in LCS when going down into amateur and winning proving grounds with no org and the squad that they had. It was a strong one at that, but has really been diversifying his style and trying to develop that leadership skill that you need. And I guess we'll see it soon in Champ Select.
Yeah, I guess we will. As you do here,
Hey,
Champ Select is just ready to go. So our second series kicking off now. Take it
Alrighty.
away.
Yeah, second series here on this stream. Team Liquid Academy taking on TSM Academy. Mazel's gonna be hanging out. We'll see him later
Oh,
on.
no,
in the
there
show.
he's gone.
Yeah.
I hurt my wrist waving that long at him.
Bye-bye, bye-bye. Can keep waving. But yeah, TSM coming in with a lot of hype in the same fashion that FlyQuest did. A strong series from them yesterday that showed a lot of the points that they have been working on throughout the recent weeks that have allowed them to surge back up. Whereas Team Liquid coming in with the high expectations, having some struggles earlier on in the first round robin, but in the second round robin have been extremely dominant.
Yeah, I think Team Liquid will be, as you're talking about with Spawn and wanting to finally get their win, I think he'll be going extra hard, and I think the team will be going extra hard trying to make sure that this is the proving grounds that they're able to come out on top of. You can expect to see them, I think, go really try hard with their drafts and you know, solidify their champion pools. I think TSM is still trying to obviously integrate Kaido and exactly everything that he wants to do. The Corki games looked nice, but I want to see him on something a little bit more proactive and actually seeing if he works with Hyper and Yurson and some of the rest of the team, because it does feel like they're beginning to ramp up and that they actually might be like not a dark horse to win, but could actually make a couple upsets happen along the way in proving grounds.
With that mid-jungle synergy being so important for teams when they are looking to make that deep run in a playoff format, I'm sure that's where they will be bringing a lot of their eyes to in terms of that development. And I mean, across the board for TSM, I think Instinct is one of those that has been a bit understated in conversations, but has been formidable in just holding up for the rest of the team. You've got Yurson and the advantages he's creating, getting capitalized upon. Hyper feeling a lot more like the strides of Hyper that we were seeing, you know, strokes of during the last season. And then for Team Liquid, yeah, it's just all around playing through bot, lots of fun. And that bot lane is going to have to worry about the Zeri on the opposite side that has made it through multiple drafts within Academy thus far, especially with the changes since her release, and Instinct piloting that pick this time.
Still a very strong champion, though. You see it sometimes banned out. I think Team Liquid here is obviously banning out some of the things that pair well with her, such as the Yumi, wanting to get that little combination out of there, and now picking a lot of guaranteed lockdown CC already. 1-2, Ryze, Volibear. Ryze has the guaranteed route if you just get the spell flux on first, and then Volibear obviously flash Q. You know, Zeri can't run away from all that, so I think Team Liquid came into this with a very clear game plan of like, Instinct will take this if it's left up, and here's what our 1-2 is going to be. And Ryze's priority seems to have been going up. Maybe I've been asleep at the wheel or something, but it feels like more and more teams are starting to early rotation Ryze away.
And especially, I guess, if you're looking at today, too, already seen it a couple times now. I like to see our Mayo on the Volley Bear as well. It's not only a comfort pick for him just from what we've seen in past series, but he's been so strong lately in knowing what lanes he should be prioritizing, how should he be covering the map, and where he should bring that ganking potential. So getting to see him execute in this series should be a good old time. Whereas on the opposite side, Trundle locked in, and then another Leona on the day for Yursan to offer that hard engage.
Yep, still very strong in the meta. I like the Armail point. He's definitely a almost Santorin light, I think you can say, which is funny enough given that he's played around Santorin a lot. But, you know, he plays Sejuanis, he plays Volley Bears, Trundles, a lot more of the facilitator for his team. And I think it's a good champ to end up on then, Volley Bear. And I like Hyper's answer, obviously, with the shred that you can get from the Trundle, as well as the lack of mobility that's already kind of present. Rise can sometimes, with Phase Rush, if he procs it, can get around the pillar easily, but without the Phase Rush proc, it's really annoying for Rise. It's obviously going to be annoying for Aphelios. So I think the front line that TSM has started stitching together to buy space for the Zeri, coming together pretty well.
I'm always a bit curious into how Team Liquid's practice structure also contributes to the similarities in styles, because Armeo and Santorin having some shared ideas, and then Ayla and Core JJ. It's a bit different because Armeo is somebody that's had his own identity for some time, so it's not the same as when you bring in a rookie that you're forming to your own idea. But you have to imagine when practicing together for such extended periods that you will be sharing a lot of the same ideas, sharing a lot of the same pool, and just the tactics from the squad overall. And for Team Liquid, it's been working on both the LCS side and the Academy side.
Yep. Armeo also did that little stint where he subbed in for Santorin, played a finals, almost won an LCS championship with Team Liquid during that time. So
true hero.
Obviously someone that you're going to be able to rely on in Proving Grounds if he can almost win a finals. And in the ban phase, we see a lot of top focus taken, two of them. I like the the Tryndamere ban against Hyper. Viper, excuse me. Don't give him that. It's so annoying, and I hate watching Tryndamere, and especially good Tryndamere players like Viper. It's actually a champion that the better you become at it, the more I hate watching you play it. Sometimes it's the inverse, you know, like a really badly played champion is hard to watch. A well-played Tryndamere is hard to watch.
So when you hear him screaming, "Rah!" your head is just doing the same thing.
It's mostly the spinning away with no HP and healing up from like, I thought you were dead with the last tick of Ignite to like living with 100 HP. That's what really gets me.
Yeah, that kills me to the core a little bit. Not if you're the one playing the Tryndamere though, and no one's going to be doing that this time around, which means Viper has to go in a different direction. And yes, he has been diversifying his pool overall, but as we're noticing the trend in a lot of these teams in this final day, in this final week of Academy, going more towards those picks that they can expect to bring out in best of series and Proving Grounds.
Yeah, the Alistar's been rising in priority a little bit recently. It feels like more and more people have gone towards it. The enchanters are not prevalent enough once you ban out a couple of them to like dominate his matchups. And then he's okay into some of the melee ones. He doesn't really win them, but you take him for the out of lane, the roaming, what he can do outside of that matchup. So I'd kind of like seeing Ayla go back towards that. Then get the Corki again for Kaido. Oh, I was just saying I want anything but Corki for him. And we get the Corki, of course.
Yeah, but hey, the Corki worked for them in both of their games against EG, and even looking in recent history for Kaiduo, yeah, all 3 games that he's played, I believe, have all been wins for TSM. So if you're looking to, we've been talking a lot about momentum going into Proving Grounds, and you want to build upon that and comfort picks and all of that, then yeah, go for the Corki.
Okay, so Bradley gets his kind of signature Akali counterpick. I was going to say I'm surprised Viper took the Camille blind. That feels like a bit of a call out. Usually it's a counter pick into specific range matchups or like certain tanks that you feel like you can get the best of. And Bradley calls him out on it a little bit and takes a bit of a skill matchup. Definitely, I think, Akali favored, but something that, you know, Viper plays it well. He can still get the beat down on him.
Does always feel like Viper is a bit more willing to go into it blinds than some of the other players across the Academy scene. So leaning on that and the confidence he has in his own play to hold it down in this lane. But we know our comps. Mark, what do you think of them? The strats that they've brought to the table?
Feels like both teams are kind of going to ignore bot lane a little bit. It'll be more focused around that topside matchup. Rise combined with the Volley Bear does have a bit of an advantage early on, especially. This is actually the same mid-jungle combination that Cloud9 main roster took last week that got Danny to flame the draft on Twitter, We talked about how annoying that mid jungle is because they can turn the turrets off, they teleport on top of you. It's very hard to survive that. So I'm a little worried for Viper. But if you can survive that, in theory, Zeri and Corki and the Camille and Trundle can all kind of outscale their counterparts for the most part.
And if you get Zeri to scale nicely, eventually that's a champion that's just so hard to escape as soon as she wants to chase you down. So I'm sure that Team Liquid are very wary of that and going to try to be a bit proactive in this game. And we'll see where that attention is poured. But Team Liquid feeling good going into this last day. Same for TSM. See if TSM can pull on the upset in this matchup.
We'll see. I feel like one of the things I've noticed that there's a little bit less that for some of the main roster teams in Academy is the proactivity of level ones. I think the Team Liquid main roster is really good at finding little ways to make the most out of their champions at level one. Corey JJ with Nautilus hooks and stuff like that. Obviously, Alistar is not quite the same champion. But not quite as much aggression I've noticed across the board level one from some of these teams. So now they are grouping up, so maybe I'm going to eat my words.
Maybe TL ushering themselves into the jungle just to drop down that ward here on red. So that'll give them the information of where Hyper is starting. No action just yet, but some crucial intel.
At least they did do that initial attempt to spot him out. Going to know that he's going to be clearing bot to top. Kind of expected, like I said, with where you expect them to fight early on. Technically, you can gank an Alistar lane because he doesn't really have any mobility and escapes. And it's not hard for a Leon to get on top of him. But I think it's a lot more important to make sure you're able to get topside and potentially stabilize that matchup depending on how the early levels in trading goes.
We'll be keeping our eyes there for sure, but definitely eyes on this top lane. Bradley versus Viper. Someone who has been playing top lane for a long time in Viper, somebody who recently switched to the role just this year in Bradley. And of course, some people are looking at that when the roster was initially announced and thinking, okay, let's see how this role swap goes from the mid position. But he's been holding it down. Sometimes you even get interesting picks from him because of that previous experience, which is always fun with a role swap player.
I think that's a big reason for the Akali prevalence. There was, I mean, Akali has been a flex pick for a long time. A lot of top laners had run Akali as well, but it is therefore an easier champion to slot into the top lane for Bradley than having to learn Orns and some of those things that you typically wouldn't see at mid lane quite as much. But in these kinds of matchups, I feel like it's his comfort zone. You can see him making good use of that range right there. Biscuits plus Doran's Blade means that, you know, Bradley probably gonna be a little bit weaker in the very early levels.
And Kaiduo very poked down right here. Does have the pot that he popped, so will survive. But in the end, cutting it close.
A little close there, and already you see Armeo being tagged in, saying, hey, you want to come down here? Might have a chance for you.
Oh, Bradley, though, the subject of the Ignite, and Viper, though, pop first. Bradley to following. Nice traded for first blood and second.
That was pretty well done there. You see the Ignite trades. I think Bradley got the first blood, so a small dub for him. And that was just well done by Bradley landing the E, right? So he was kind of going in to get that last bit of damage. The E for Akali can do a lot, so that's why he was able to get that kill early. And you saw in the mid lane there's an annoying freeze that Harry was putting down and Armeo was lurking around that made Kaido have to TP back really early on and might need some help to break this wave because Armeo is still kind of lurking in that area. We'll see what Hyper wants to do if he wants to put his attention down the bot side.
Circling around into the enemy jungle just to drop the wards for now. Not entirely sure of where Armeo may be, but Hyper doesn't see the play opportunity. This is pretty pushed up, and Ayla and Yan playing fairly safely. So, gonna stick around, though, just a little bit longer.
Yeah, kind of getting his time wasted by TL's bot lane. Are they going to go? Are they not going to go? It's not the end of the world, given that he didn't have his camps immediately up, that he was leaving them, and he wants to wait for them to respawn so he can do a bot to top clear, or excuse me, top to bot to clear, excuse me, based off how he pinged that out. Needs to, I think, want to get up there, grab these, and then potentially meet Armeo in the top lane.
Viper has to back off now. Has that ward down in Tribush, so knows that Armeo is here and does have Hyper on the path as well. See if they end up being able to collapse here. Knockback with the pillar, stun up against, forces the flash from Armeo, but the follow-up here from Hyper. Can they get the additional damage? Hook shot, or not hook shot rather. Bradley just zipping on in, still level 5, no ultimate available to them, but high enough to keep Viper and Hyper at bay.
Nice bait out there by Viper. Getting Armeo to blow his E early on meant that when the Trundle made his way in, you have to worry about getting scrapped out there at all. No shield, no big burst chunk that comes in as a melee sometimes when you're fighting the volley bear. And that made it very easy for them to force a flash. Bradley played it well to scare them off, but a nice little win there for Hyper, who can continue on his clear, kind of unperturbed, whereas Armeo had to go back in the base right away.
Yeah, and just into his jungle he goes. Armeo backed, and plenty of summoners used. You're still waiting on those ignites to come up from the top laners too from that previous 1v1 trade, and they had used their teleports to get back into lane. So Bradley on this back right now will have to take that additional time to return to his original positioning. And meanwhile on the bot side, Dragon has spawned and is at the ready for taking if somebody wants to try. But the words are in the favor of red side. Team Liquid keeping their eyes on this one.
Team Liquid should have a small advantage around the Dragon fights, just with the mid-jungle priority that we already kind of talked about. I don't think bot lane has a significant advantage that you can play through it and just kind of force the Dragons, quite like you could with some of the Cloud9 games that we just watched, where you have Ezreal Karma, and it's like, okay, well, they're going to get the shove, and that means it's free for the jungler to grab that. Feels a little bit more contentious here, as well as the top lane being such a focus makes you think that might be a bit of a slow Drake game for both teams.
Very different from the first series that we saw, where it was a pretty quick prioritization in both. But now with the action kind of pushed away, TSM decide to start this up. Instinct and Yurson had previously pushed a bit, so they can stay here with Hyper to make sure that they burn this down. No contest from the opposing side as Armeo is down towards top.
Alrighty, maybe my words right away. Yeah, with Armeo clearing up to the top side, it was a free window to grab that one away. Team Liquid, we'll have to see what they want to do from here. It's at 6 where their comp really turns online. Like we were talking about, the ability to turn off the turrets, the Realm Warp to put them basically on top of the turret to begin with. That's when it really starts to become annoying. But if you can't get the shove in either of your side waves, that little combo is not quite as annoying. So either Jan or Bradley are going to have to start getting their waves pushing. For TSM, I think getting the Dragon that early is good, because maybe you can force some more of these standard front-to-back team fights where I think they're potentially a little bit stronger. We'll have to see.
All right, Armeo, because of what you just said, wanting to hit that 6 territory, just spend so much time just going and pushing an advantage over Hyper. A slight lead in experience there.
Ooh.
Bradley gets really chunked down, but he knew that his jungler was nearby, but so was the opposing jungler, which means that it's just a 2v2 down here in bot. Both of the supports are on the tankier side, that's for sure. So trying to shore up as much as the damage from the enemy poke as possible. Going on forward with the E, the knock up in return. Headbutt to get Instinct out of there. Is range enough? Meanwhile, though, Bradley in a little bit of trouble for only a short period of time, because Armeo is 6. He is here onto Viper, who retreats over towards the turret territory. Does have some minions, but as soon as he drops that aggro onto them, he is punished for it.
Bit of an overextension there by Viper, really feeling himself, thinking he can zone Bradley off the wave, ends up giving the kill over to him. It started out really good for Viper too, because he actually landed, I believe, a blind hookshot onto Bradley, who was still in his shroud, to start that off. That's how he kind of got a really good chip damage initially, but once the E missed and he couldn't actually just kind of chain CC Bradley gets in his shroud again. There's no way to kill him between those turrets. Now he's just kind of stuck up between the two, and Bradley knows that without the Q primed, he's perfectly safe to go running in there. That was a bit of a mistake by Viper, thinking that he had the kill opportunity there if he could land that hook shot.
Towards the top side objective, what do you know? You see them on it, on that Herald. A little bit of 2v2 down here. I mean, Armeo is still here in the vicinity. All right, back down bot though. Moonlight Vigil lands onto Instinct, which means to connect for a decent amount of damage in the pop. Yurson is all alone.
That was clean by Yeon there, getting the flash Q off to get that damage in. Now it's going to lead to a redive with the Rise Realm Warp coming in while they let that Rift Herald go away.
And Yurson is still here, gets booted back, and Team Liquid for a moment might have lost, but juggle the damage effectively from the turret, and the teleport from Kaiduo makes sure that they don't stand on by.
Yeah, Kaido kind of wastes his TP there. The death still happens. You protect maybe some turret plates, but during that time, you could have just been farming yourself, grabbing your own turret plates. So ends up losing his teleport there. Ares will be coming up in a second. Here's this kind of flash Q I was talking about by Yon that looks super clean. Ayla, nice turnaround, engage to get the double knockup. Once that ult lands, he auto flash Qs there to get the root, and then the follow-up auto from the Q as well. That was just super clean because I think the slow from the Graviton makes it a lot easier to land that kind of ranged Q in the green gun form. And then once he's dead, you know, there's nothing to stop them from rediving, given that they already knew the Rift Herald was being taken. They know there's no collapse really coming in, and they finish that one off easily.
Which means the gold lead for Yon over Instinct is beginning to extend up in CS, up a kill and assist itemization coming online. And TSM, on the other hand, have to be wary about that next time they fall into a skirmish with TL over on that bot side.
Yeah, this is beginning to get a little dicey. There's not that much protection for the... Oh, hold on here. Kaido has a package. She's fine. There's not that much protection for the Zarya that you sometimes see with the Enchanter games where it's all about buffing her up and making her go crazy. There's a lot of frontline and engage and ways to buy space for her, but nothing to directly support her and like throw shields down or speed her up or anything like that. So when things start going bad and you get pinned up against the turret, that's where that guaranteed lockdown CC that from the rest of Team Liquid's comp can come online and really make it difficult to pilot Zarya, who is honestly a pretty short-range champion.
Yeah, until you see her pop off later. That's the thing. So right now you do want to punish her as much as possible when you do have that range on her. And for Team Liquid, a lot of their gold just being distributed across the board. These little individual leads becoming more significant over time. And for TSM, they do have the condition of having stacked up that previous Drake. Flash on in. Armeo is here to get something onto Kaido, but he finds his way back towards the turret. A flash used by the Corki.
Do have mid priority though, so they're trying to move their way down. Harry's ult is not up to get them in range there, but just rotating down, knowing that Kaido can't follow after losing his flash package means that they actually can't get this Rift Herald into turret. A really nice move there by Team Liquid, transferring their mid pressure down to actually make it a useless Herald by TSM Academy there. Bit of a disaster that they couldn't actually get that one into wave. And Armeo showing some of that control that we're talking about, that you kind of feel like there's little inklings of Santorin in it. They're making the intelligent play, trading flash for flash mid lane, getting pressure, and then using that to defend your bot lane.
Even if you can't get that Herald crash, you hope that it draws some sort of attention so you can make a play elsewhere, but there really wasn't anything to be had because that was over on the bot side already, which means Team Liquid would be at the ready for the next Drake. No Rift Herald up top because that's the one that you just dropped down, and then that's mostly just the solo laners you're leaving up there as well. So TSM not able to capitalize upon that opportunity, but still finding ways to stick in it here as it is early in the game, only cresting onto this 13-minute mark.
I think that's what you're going to hang your hat on a little bit here, is arguably outscaling a little bit in straight 5v5s, mostly off the Corki Trundle 2v2. That is a thing that the Team Liquid 1 has the advantage in the early game, but it will fall behind a little bit should they not actually extend that lead that well. But I like what they've done so far and how they're going to now try and move this into the jungle.
Armeo stepping up to Hyper, and Harry coming in with a Realm Warp too. The root is good, and Kaido, can he dish off enough to keep them off of it? And he manages to, throws down some missiles. Armeo just with another missile or two should get it. One more will do. Valkyrie to get into range of him, but the hops are too good, cannot connect in the end, and the rest of the team is split off over towards that river side. So Armeo drawing the attention of multiple TSM members here.
Unfortunately, Armeo is going to drop at some point here. Did not get the timeout. Kaido finds that kill after they did a good job collapsing. This is the power of the Trundle. Just steals Volibear stats and becomes so tanky and hard to kill that despite the fact he was kind of caught out 1v3, he's actually alive at the end of this play, chasing down the members of TL out of his jungle. We also had the Viper TP in onto a ward there that got another kill. This is a pretty extended chase down sequence. We saw the Volibear side of it. Here's the other side where Viper TP'd in, I believe, and came in, collapsed down. They find the kill into Ayla. He's going to be the free kill and buys space for Harry and Yon to get out of there. But it's a 2-for-0 on TSM side, getting a little bit of breathing room in this game.
All right, see if they can make that breathing room into something just that much more. For TSM right now, Instinct just returned over towards lane. We're getting a bit of that default back from everyone. And I mean, it's a still a lead in favor of Team Liquid here, and some of that time lost from that trace down. So just an opportunity to keep farming it up a bit here, Mark.
Yep. The nice thing for TL, for the Copium take on that, is that Bradley got alone time in the top lane, finished off his Rift Maker from that time. So he's a little bit ahead of Viper and might start being able to win that 1v1 directly. You can see it's a little dicey for Viper right now. These trades, you have to be very careful when you take them because it can go south very quickly. It's a very explosive matchup, as you can see, and you still have to worry about the Volibear and the Rise comboing together. And Hyper, you see, is aware of this. He's doing a really good job of trying to be where Armeo is going to be. TL going to contest this Rift Herald, though they want this one for themselves.
Yep, second one is up and already started by Team Liquid. Harry here for the additional support as Armeo takes this. And while Hyper was in the vicinity, it was more of that matching because Instinct is still farming up over on that bot side, able to push up that wave. And then Yursan in mid in case some kind of fight breaks out here too. And keeping Kaiduo protected because there have been some attempted ganks onto him here mid from Armeo, especially when he's coming over from that topside river.
Yeah, definitely. And the fact that Ayla got there a little bit faster, it was a bunch of reasons for TSM to sack that one. Just keep scaling up like you're talking about before. Corki still waiting on the first couple items to be finished off. No transform on the Muramana yet. No Hex Drinker. I mean, it is a Hex Drinker, but it's not been popped yet or upgraded, excuse me. So not the strongest he's going to be in this game. So I can totally see him sacking that Rift Herald and just trying to stabilize.
And everyone else just getting stronger all the while. You already mentioned Bradley having his Mythic online, but recently Jan finishing off that Gale Force. You have the Triforce here for Instinct as well. The good old budget build that Rise loves to do. Harry's working into it. Some of that additional tinkiness here for the later fighting. And when you're focused on scaling over on TSM side, continue to lean into that. Hyper, though, in his attempts to do so, just hanging out in his jungle and does have to be wary of the fact that Ayla and Armeo are starting to push into it.
I like the double Hex Drinker given the double AP solo lanes. This will help them a lot in the mid to late game team fights of surviving any potential bursts from the Akali. And so far, I'd say they're okay. Falling about 3K behind in the early game is a little bit more than you want to, about 4 once this Rift Herald finishes off this turret as well. It's not the end of the world, but things are beginning to get difficult because you're probably not going to want to contest this dragon right now either. You can see Hyper taking a reset as it's coming up in 15 seconds. If you do need to contest it, you got to work your way in very slowly, poking with Corki missiles, Trundle pillars to face check things because Team Liquid, the fact that they are not dragon stacking means that TSM's not on a huge timer, and they can maybe afford to focus more on farming up and getting a couple more items.
And when you are busting down that mid turret as well as special delivery coming in from Kaiduo to punish Bradley, but you have that mobility as a Kali to get out of it. And at least now you know that's used. Ares here on the top side too. 4 members of FlyQuest. Everyone except for Instinct are hanging out on this top side. And Team Liquid, you can tell in their movement that they just want to make sure that nobody comes to contest this dragon. So Armeo stacking the second one up, but TSM's trade for it is the top turret. So they can break open this side of the map. Team Liquid having done the same for the opposite.
Nicely done there by TSM, kind of understanding that, hey, we don't want to contest this dragon. Let's go find a play on the flip side of the map to make. And this is one thing I want to give TSM Academy credit for of improving in the last like week and so is their actual ability to make plays from behind. Against the EG team yesterday, EG had this really early game focused comp. It's very fragile where if something goes wrong, they can lose the game very easily, but from ahead that you kind of just win all 3 lanes and push. And it can be hard to make plays against that. And TSM legitimately found angles to make plays against the high tempo comp and see again here they're trying to find opportunities to do just that.
See if they can do it. Viper targeting Armeo, but Armeo goes into stasis as a response, so he sidesteps a lot of the Kaiduo damage. And meanwhile, Harry and friends are here in the party. Hyper is offset here with Kaiduo, or Viper rather. Viper's on the retreat here. Harry should get one more hit off of the Rune Prison. It's gonna be enough. 3 eliminated for TSM.
Oh, I caster cursed them. No!
You keep doing it, Mark!
It was a decent idea. Like I said, from behind, you're trying to make these overloaded plays where you just bring more members than they can bring. And I think TSM thought with Viper TPing in that they would quickly get this 3v2 in their favor, that they could explode the Volley Bear, but he's just a little bit too tanky. They couldn't actually get through his health bar with the extra health that he got from his ultimate, and then that bought time for TL's comp to collapse a little bit faster on the map play. Here, you can see a world where you're able to just blow him up while he's locked in there, but that stopwatch, they probably were not aware that he had that, and that is what bought the time for Bradley to collapse. They're able to blow up Hyper, and then from there, you can see Team Liquid just have the inside track on this play. But I mean, like, I want to give TSM credit for like a decent idea, but you got to check inventories when you're trying to blow somebody up quickly from behind, and that was a bit of an overstep there.
Yeah, stopwatch buying enough. Really great stuff from TL's side. And because of the way that fight went down, able to push that top turret to answer the turret that TSM had previously taken down. Now all of the outer turrets down in favor of Team Liquid at this point, and their gold lead extending, the dragon lead. So all of these minor things adding up to a big picture.
And they're a comp that is able to make plays very easily when there's not a major objective up, with the Rise Realm Warp, the dive potential with Volley Bear turning off the turrets, Alistar ult tanking. Like, you have to be very careful when you fall behind for TSM here, because anyone trapped under a turret is really not actually safe. And that's why you see Kaido totally backing off this turret here, knowing if I'm underneath trying to actually wave clear in CS, I am dead.
You have to twiddle your thumbs, play with a propeller, and just hope that as soon as another objective or something spawns, you can be more proactive in your playmaking from TSM. But Team Liquid, they don't want to let up. Bradley is up top answering Viper and that continued push, and TSM dropped down the solar flare. But what are you going to do in the follow-up when you've got these beefy members and not as much of an opportunity to burn them down?
I mean, that was a two-man solar flare, right? That they just totally let it go. TL was not worried about it. Two people stunned up kind of next to a turret. Who cares? We're too far ahead. It's not a big deal. And then TSM just used that effectively for wave clear and zoning. Again, no major objective up for another minute and a half. I mean, Baron technically up, but TL probably aren't far enough ahead to want to force that one that bluntly. So instead, they're going to fall back now after that push. They couldn't get the turret, but going to set up around Dragon in the next minute.
The hardest thing about this scenario is we look to a moment that was similar a few minutes ago when they had their turrets up, and you think, okay, at least Instinct is off farming on his own. You know, at least Kaido is starting to grow as well, but there's just not as much safe territory for them to do so. They've been unable to push any of their wards up past the line of scrimmage, really, whereas Team Liquid, because of that previous pressure, have more of that agency at their disposal, getting some controls down around that bot side jungle for TSM, and more question marks for TSM when they're trying to make their movements.
Yeah, there was a period of time where they could kind of go cross-map TL because they were behind, but they were even enough that you had these little timing windows that you let TL choose where they want to go first, and you go to the other side of the map. Now they're far enough behind that TL has such control over the entire map that it's very hard to find these odd man fights without totally sacking major objectives. And again, it's only the third dragon, so technically TSM don't need to fight this one, but there's no longer an easy play on the opposite side of the map. Yursan is doing Baron vision control. That doesn't feel like a good trade when you're giving up third dragon.
And it was only that first one that TSM had acquired. So it kind of shows as soon as Team Liquid were able to force more of their will across the map, they've had control of both of the objectives. The second Herald going towards them, the last two dragons now on this sole point. So yes, not something that you have to worry about quite yet, but more so the control that they have exerted over time.
Yep.
Taking this one here.
Yeah, this will be the third one in the bank. Harry has become very strong on the rise now. 3 items completed. Fimbulwinter done. Got his Force of Nature as well. So going to be tanky against anyone that he ends up with in the side lane. TL also have this 1-3-1 advantage, which didn't really hit on thus far in the game yet. But you see Bradley. Ooh, nice land there.
Oh, just look at that damage, though. The burn is good. Bradley not taken down by the turret shots, uplifted and feeling himself.
That's that 1-3-1 I was just talking about. They get Kaido to face check, and as soon as he lands the E, that's pretty much a guaranteed kill. The Akali is so strong that once that's on, Kaido is not nearly tanky enough to survive that. Even through the Hex Drinker, the Ignite's able to finish him off.
Viper goes in, and the big slam down. Instinct picks up the kill onto Jan, and Armeo immediately blasted right in the center of it all. Bradley off of the back did have teleport to come back through from that mid positioning, but now without a jungler or an ADC available for TL, just short a mid laner, TSM, they're starting this up. They get the teleport coming through so that they have Viper here at their side. Hyper chunked down so low though. Viper, he's going for it, gets a knock up though. Ayla creating that distance as much as possible, and a slam through from Bradley for the follow-up. Instinct picks one up onto the cow, gets him gutted. Root response onto Kaido means he can't perform as expertly as he wants to in the follow-up, but he's just remaining with his team. They zone off and they take the victory of another kill.
Yeah, what ended up being a back and forth fight gets them into 3,000 gold. It was up to about 5,000 in Team Liquid's favor, but that entire sequence goes massively in TSM's favor, and it's a lot due to Viper just basically setting up Jan, hitting him so hard that, you know, it's easy for Instinct to go in there and just find that initial kill. Then the Volley Bear is easily focused down 4 for 0 after the 80 carry was finished off there. Those two quick kills put TL into a position where they're kind of inting to stop the Baron and making it worse, but you still get a couple kills for free for TSM there. They're still behind. Soul points coming up in 3 minutes, but that was a huge little swing in their favor.
Yeah, making sure that the gold is shorter. They didn't get the Baron, but it's not like that's something that was guaranteed to them, and they were really just wanting to draw that attention and see what they can pull off from it. So those members, like we're looking at, like Instinct, how you gonna be later on into the game, getting that bounty, getting some of that CS, now finally evening out with Jan over time.
Yep, and the fact that Zeri is the one finding these kills, I mean, the Corki is already super farmed just from the game, and some of the turf play stuff is Hyper loses flash there. You saw it was over 10,000 gold for Kaido. Instinct does need the help a little bit to get his build even further jump started, and I think TL are feeling the pressure of potentially getting out of scale. That's why they're forcing this Baron.
All right, Yerson goes in with the E, but nothing to really follow up from yet as one of the tankiest ones. You have more of that agency to do so. Solar Flare lands onto a few, but TLA decide to stick the Baron instead, and after they get it, the damage is good. Hyper blasted on down. Kaido separated from the rest. Even these rockets can't do enough. So in the end, TL, they get the objective. They feel good. They take down the enemy jungler. Can they get a response here? Viper targeting Bradley with a Hextech ultimatum, but mostly to use that distance to pull towards the rest of the team, and maybe they can go and take down this mid turret in the meantime, and TL deciding to back.
Constellation prize for TSM there, grabbing that mid lane turret, but TL still come out way ahead, getting the Baron. That force flash onto Hyper actually ended up being huge. They used that as basically the, okay, well, let's just brute force Baron, because Hyper is Trundle and has to walk through our entire team to try and contest this. There's no way to contest it, and then it's just a front-to-back team fight from there. They're still able to just blow him up. They have so much damage on their team comp that even through the ultimate from Hyper, he's instantly killed, and without him, the front line through TSM is not that big, and it was hard for TSM to actually find a target that they wanted to hit after that.
So Team Liquid, just right now, being that they have that Baron buff and less than a minute for that Drake, that means that they're in a good position to do so, to get some of these waves pushed up and start controlling this map once more. TSM back into that back foot territory a bit, Mark. Not a lot of places that they can go safely and really just try to respond to the setup that Team Liquid establishes on the bot side.
You still feel like they have to go here. You can't give up triple Hextech Soul Dragon. The amount of slows and damage that you'll be taking from all their abilities is just going to be too much. So TSM are in a really tough spot here, but you can't afford to just give up the soul point for nothing. They have to find a way into this, though. It's so hard because they can't get any vision control. Viper's not going to have a flank onto Jan, which is what he needed to win that one fight that TSM won.
Harry directly off with Viper right now. Viper going in, throws down his ultimate again. Bradley's in the vicinity, but so is the rest of TSM. And as soon as Bradley sees that, he walked over a ward as well, knows that there's no point in continuing on to this. They created that space so that the rest of Team Liquid could rotate towards that soul. The slows will be bringing TSM down into the quicksand for the remaining fights of this game.
Gonna be a very tough one to win from here. The 1-3-1 power, you see the soul lanes just keeping it pushed up, makes it so that there's no in for TSM to actually contest that. And it's going to be very hard for them to find plays now. Jan also finishes Bloodthirster, wanting to get a little bit more defensive, realizing I'm the easiest one for them to jump on and insta-kill, so he grabs that defensive item, the Bloodthirster, becoming a little bit more popular. I feel like in recent weeks, Zale was popping off about some MF Bloodthirster build, and here I think it's a good adaptation by Yon.
And it's whether you're looking at that part of the itemization or just the fact that there's a couple stopwatches in the arsenal for TL as well, the tankiness of Rise, it's going to be harder to burst any of them down for a multitude of reasons for TSM. So maybe hoping to get a pick, but in the end, TL are also moving as a unit. It's usually Bradley that's offset and does have teleport available to join the rest of the team for the 5v5 if it's ever forced. Right now, Ayla being the target. Only a little bit of a slow on the solar flare onto a few members of TL. Nothing for TSM to capitalize upon right now. Just trying to clear this wave as much as possible. Armeo somewhat separated, but it just means as soon as Yurson goes in, he just gets bursted down as well. And Armeo completely zoned off, but TL on the other side remaining nice and strong. Bradley making his way to the fray. Uses the ultimate. A nice dishing of damage. Hyper is the next one to fall. Jan getting the kill credit for that one, and Bradley, as low as he is such a good moment for the rest of the team. Zeri, look at the zip zap from Instinct, manages to get one of these kills, and Jan is pretty low. Can you dish it back? But the heal and the sustain off of the itemization is good. The return on both sides. Eventual ace from TSM. Team Liquid still here with 2 members to blast into this base.
Team Liquid forced that fight, or excuse me, TSM forced that fight. Team Liquid answered it quite well. And then after winning it, the 4-man Rise Realm Warp beneath the turret left Armeo there to try and deal with Instinct. That's very hard to do. Take a look at this fight starting out. TSM know they have to try and just force anything while the Akali is not there. They don't really find a clean engage. The ult doesn't stun. The E goes wide for Yurson there. And so finally Viper's like, I'll start it myself. And they're able to do that, but it's so not clean anymore after they've used so many of Leona's initial cooldowns that they easily get kited out. And then here, it should be a really easy fight for them to win for TL. They basically give everyone, and then they take this Rise Realm Warp. Armeo was not able to get in range for it, so I think what Instinct did here was really smart. He goes, all right, I just got to make the most of this. He goes in, kills the Volley Bear, chunks out Jan. He's still very dangerous. And then because Jan was scared of him at the exact time Ayla went in, there was actually no damage really during the knockup to finish him off, which allows this 1-for-1 to happen and basically saves the game because the rest of Team Liquid was like, they're fine, let's go mid. And Harry and Bradley were totally out of there. They did not care about that skirmish that was going on the top side. They just assumed that they would win it and then could probably end the game right after. So game-saving play by Instinct there.
Bradley and Harry alone couldn't end up pushing that through, and Yurson came up, and they still had a lot that they would have had to work through in the base. So, yeah, good on Instinct, keeping them in it. And I wonder if we're going to end up seeing kind of just like a repeat thing here with the continued pressure from TL on this top side, because now we have 8 seconds towards the next Baron spawning, and there's a clear setup happening with the wards going down. TSM not wanting to give this over just yet, though. Maybe getting reinvigorated by saying, oh, we know what Zeri can do. We know the damage output that we can have if we have a bit more of a setup, a bit more landing of the lockdown from Leona right off the bat. But instead, it's Leona that gets locked down, ends up getting rooted, has to flash away, but it's still not enough. Jan with enough damage to finish Yurson off. Oh no, that's an opening for TL.
TL going to be able to grab the Baron uncontested after that one. No heroics from Instinct this time around. What made the last play work so well was that it was a bunch of kind of 1v1s that he was able to take one after another and use kind of the speed up of Zeri to make that work. But in a straight front to back 5v5, it's very difficult, and especially when Leona just gets popped before it even really starts.
And no one else really besides Leona to try and service that role as soon as she's eliminated. So with that, TL read it very well. They take the Baron. They're smashing through onto this top lane. They already got that previous inhibitor down prior in mid and are looking to have some effect over on this top side as well with this Baron push.
Yep, they're going to be able to grab this inhibitor most likely. Leona up now, trying to find a flank potentially. Viper is kind of ignoring the bot lane right now to deal with the mid, but it also puts him in range to be closer to potentially pick a fight.
All right, let's see if anything comes through here. E into the solar flare. Yurison backing up. A nice slow from the pillar. And over the wall, Armeo goes. Viper is in pursuit, though, to go and kill off using a Hextech ultimatum. Harry also in a dangerous position. Another 1v1 scenario for Bradley means that he comes up with the kill here against Viper. So 2 down for TSM. Numbers advantage for TL. Bradley, a second kill taking down Hyper. So Instinct and Kaido are on the retreat. What can they do from this position when you have a little bit of a wave with the Baron buff? 4 members of TL taking down 1 turret. They've got their eyes on the objective on the second, but they need to wait till this next wave to be able to bring some of the damage down. Ayla very heavily chunked. Instinct's poke is really good, and you do have to worry about it. So TL must create that distance so they don't become too vulnerable. Enough time, though, for Yurison to come back up, who doesn't quite have the solar flare, but has the rest of the kit. Root after root after root. Oh no, the E ends up missing, so he doesn't get collapsed onto Yan just yet, and Bradley is the target of Kaido. In the end, the Nexus is hit, and TL take the victory. Game number 1 in their pocket.
All right, Team Liquid got a little dicey at some moments there, but more or less were in control for the majority of that game. It was a good showing by TSM as well, though. I think they did show some of those things as much as like Castle Curse, as they went for it, being able to play from behind a little bit. They're defaulting into scaling a lot recently, and it's leading them to some tough positions. And so we'll have to see between games if they try and adapt that, or if it's back to Corki again for Kaido. For the TL side, I thought they looked really good. I'm looking forward to watching them in Proving Grounds.
Oh, yeah. I understand that position that you get put in when you're TSM in that moment. And you're thinking, oh, well, we don't want to play just not to lose. We want to play to win. Let's try and find an opening. But it didn't work out in the end. TLA looking real strong. We're kicking it to a break. When we return, we've got more content for you, more things, and game number 2 between these 2 Academy teams on the last game of the B Stream and Academy, everybody. Don't miss it.
It's the final one.